What will a $100 bill buy you in the year 2026? A full grocery cart? Not anymore. A tank of gas? You're dreaming. At this rate, and I'm not exaggerating, that $100 bill might buy you a pack of toilet paper. Maybe, because we've seen this before. In Weimar, Germany, people brought wheelbarrows of cash to the store just to buy a loaf of bread. In Zimbabwe, a $1 trillion note couldn't buy eggs. In Venezuela, the bolivar was worth less than the paper it was printed on. Now it's our turn. The US dollar is collapsing under its own weight, and when hyperinflation hits, it doesn't just destroy your savings, it reprograms your reality. So today we're counting down what your $100 will actually buy in 2026. And trust me, by the time we reach number 1, you'll understand. Hyperinflation isn't coming, it's already here. Number 10. Your $100 bill will buy a pack of toilet paper, maybe. If trends continue into 2026, your crisp $100 bill, once the envy of the world, might be worth just enough to score you a family-sized pack of off-brand toilet paper. That's it. And we're not talking about the soft, quilted luxury stuff. We're talking about the dry, single-ply roll that rips if you breathe too hard on it. Because when hyperinflation hits, the first thing that collapses isn't just the stock market or your savings, it's the purchasing power of every single dollar in your wallet. And history shows us how fast that can go south. In 1923, a loaf of bread in Weimar, Germany cost 250 marks. Just a few months later, 200 billion. That's how quickly things unravel. People were literally burning money to keep warm because firewood was more valuable than their savings. Now look at us. In 2024, a 30-pack of name-brand toilet paper cost about $24. By early 2025, it jumped to $38 in some parts of the US, and now inflation-adjusted models are predicting that by Q1 2026, basic consumables like toilet paper could triple again if supply chains continue to buckle and the dollar keeps free-falling. See, most people think inflation is a slow boil, but hyperinflation is a detonation. It's when the currency doesn't just devalue, it disintegrates. You wake up and realize your paycheck can't even cover breakfast. And here's the terrifying twist. The US isn't even importing most of its paper goods anymore. With shipping container costs soaring past $11,000 per unit from Asia, and domestic pulp producers buckling under fuel costs and labor shortages, we're watching the entire input chain collapse. So, yeah, your $100 might buy you a pack of paper to wipe with, but not enough to wipe away the shame of what we've allowed to happen. The dollar used to command respect. It used to mean something. But in 2026, it's just a piece of lint-dusted linen worth less than the cardboard core inside the roll you're lucky to get your hands on. Number 9. In 2026, that same $100 might cover a single day's worth of groceries. Here's where it really starts to hurt. Because when the price of food detonates, not creeps, detonates, society doesn't just struggle, it shatters. Right now, in late 2025, the USDA's Thrifty Food Plan, the model used to calculate SNAP benefits, estimates a family of 4 needs about $1,000 a month just to barely survive on groceries. But that's based on 2023 pricing models. Since then, wheat has surged 47%, eggs are up 29%, and the cost of beef has gone full Jurassic, climbing over 70% in some urban areas. We've got Midwest ranchers slaughtering early because they can't afford feed. We've got massive droughts slashing harvests from California to Kansas. But most importantly, we've got a Federal Reserve caught between raising rates, which kills jobs, or letting inflation go unchecked, which kills everyone's future. So what happens when grocery stores need to price in the cost of not just food, but fuel, packaging, freight, labor, refrigeration, security, and losses from theft all at once? You get a society where $100 buys you some dry pasta, a half-gallon of milk, a bag of rice, and maybe a sad bag of bruised apples. That's it. That's your pantry. In Weimar, Germany, kids made kites out of currency. In Venezuela, men weighed cash instead of counting it. In 2026 America, we're not there yet, but you better believe there are families choosing between dinner and insulin, between diapers and gas. And here's what people don't get. Hyperinflation doesn't just kill wallets, it kills schedules. It kills planning. When prices change daily, budgeting becomes a joke. You can't save. You can't invest. You can't even shop with confidence. And in a world where a cart of groceries costs $100 plus every 24 hours, that paper in your wallet doesn't give you freedom, it gives you a countdown. A warning. A clock ticking louder with every trip to the store, whispering, "Your money's almost done." Number 8. By mid-2026, your $100 may buy just 3 gallons of gas. You thought food inflation was terrifying? Wait until you see what's coming for fuel, because when hyperinflation takes hold, it doesn't just hit the stuff on your plate, it devours everything that keeps the modern world running, and nothing is more critical than gas. Right now, gas prices are creeping towards $7 in states like California, but that's just the warm-up act. With crude oil prices fluctuating wildly between $85 and $120 a barrel, and U.S. refineries operating at reduced capacity thanks to labor shortages and scheduled shutdowns, we are setting ourselves up for a catastrophic energy shock. And here's the kicker. Demand isn't falling, it's rising. Shipping, trucking, farming, even emergency services, they all need fuel, which means they all need dollars. But when the dollar weakens, oil-exporting countries start demanding payment in gold-backed yuan or crypto or euros, anything but dollars. And when the U.S. can't get cheap oil, the ripple effect turns into a tidal wave. By the time we hit Q3 2026, some models from the Energy Information Administration, EIA, suggest we could be looking at $26 per gallon in certain regions, maybe even higher in states with high taxes or supply disruptions. That means your $100 bill, once able to fill up a tank and grab some snacks, might not even buy you half a tank in a compact sedan. Forget road trips, forget commuting, forget food deliveries, Amazon packages, or emergency hospital visits. They all run on fuel. And if fuel becomes inaccessible, the economy grinds to a halt. And this is what most people forget. Inflation is like fire, but hyperinflation is like radiation. It doesn't just burn, it contaminates. Even if your paycheck goes up, your spending power collapses faster than your raise can save you. Gas stations will become security risks. Delivery apps will die. And suddenly, $100 won't feel like a lifeline. It'll feel like a cruel joke printed on cotton paper. And all the while, the average American will be left wondering how we went from energy independent to energy destitute in under 2 years. Number 7. In 2026, your $100 might buy a fast food combo meal, but only if you skip the drink. You think drive-through food is cheap? In the age of hyperinflation, it becomes a luxury item. And no, that's not hyperbole, it's math. McDonald's already rolled out a $20 combo meal in several major cities back in 2024. And by the end of 2025, Wendy's made headlines by testing dynamic pricing, adjusting costs in real time depending on traffic. The writing's on the wall. As inflation surges, fast food America's supposed cheap eat safety net is being priced like a steakhouse. Why? Because every input cost has exploded. Beef prices are up 72% since 2022. Frying oil, up 60% if you can even get it. And with labor strikes, robot replacements, and franchisees facing razor-thin margins, they're not absorbing the cost, they're passing it on to you. In 2026, expect combo meals to clock in at $28, $32, maybe even higher in dense urban centers. You'll be lucky to grab a burger, small fries, and no drink that's your $100 blown in 3 visits. And don't think it ends there. The chicken industry, once the cheap protein fallback, has been hit by yet another wave of avian flu, killing off 16 million birds in 2025 alone. That means no relief from poultry either. Hyperinflation isn't about prices going up slowly, it's about the psychological break that happens when prices jump weekly. Suddenly, menus become moving targets. You show up one day and it's $12. 2 days later, it's $16. Next week, it's $22. That destroys consumer confidence and it hits low-income families first. Fast food used to be the last stop before starvation. Now it's a status symbol. And this is the part no one talks about when the price of even the worst quality, heavily processed food is out of reach for most people. Malnutrition spikes. A $100 bill won't feed a family for a day, and food insecurity explodes. America has 37 million people already relying on food banks. In 2026, we might see food banks themselves going bankrupt. Imagine that a nation where you can't even afford to be poor. That's the America $100 buys you now. Welcome to the gourmet dystopia. Number 6. By late 2026, that $100 bill could pay for 1 hour of electricity. Think about that. Not a full day, not a week, 1 single hour. And it's not just wild speculation, it's the direction we're already heading in. Electricity prices are tied to everything: fossil fuels, utility infrastructure, copper prices, global supply chains, water access, labor, and even cybersecurity. Right now, the average American pays around 17 cents per kilowatt hour. But as of Q4 2025, California's peak pricing during critical demand periods has already hit $1.03 per kilowatt hour. Texas, still reeling from its 2021 grid disaster, has seen its emergency spot market rate spike as high as $5 per kilowatt hour during brownouts. Now, do the math. The average U.S. household uses roughly 30 kilowatt hours per day, and that's if you're not running AC during a 110-degree heat wave or trying to keep your medical equipment on overnight. In a hyperinflated economy where utilities are under siege from both pricing pressure and failing infrastructure, $100 will get you enough juice to run a fridge, 2 lights, and a laptop for an hour maybe. And guess who suffers first? Rural Americans. Those on fixed incomes, seniors who depend on dialysis or refrigerated insulin. As energy becomes unaffordable, rolling blackouts become policy, not a temporary emergency. The grid operators don't have the spare parts. Copper is up 88% year over year, and they sure don't have the budget. And don't think renewables save you. Yes, solar and wind are growing fast, but they depend on lithium, rare earths, and a stable manufacturing pipeline, all of which are being strangled by inflation. When you can't afford to build new turbines because the cost of a single industrial inverter just tripled, the dream of clean energy becomes a mirage. Meanwhile, energy traders, Wall Street's shadow kings, are betting on your blackout. With deregulated energy markets, they want price spikes. They get rich every time the lights flicker. So in 2026, your $100 bill doesn't mean security. It means silence. No power, no light, no food. Just the dark and the gnawing realization that your hard-earned money is now worth less than a coin in an arcade machine from the 90s. Number 5. Your $100 in 2026 will barely cover a week's supply of tap water. That's right. The one thing every American thought was a birthright, clean running water, has officially become a luxury item. This isn't a hypothetical. This isn't exaggeration. This is where we're headed. And for millions, we're already there. In Jackson, Mississippi, thousands went months in 2022 without clean tap water. In Flint, Michigan, residents still can't trust what comes out of their faucets. But in 2026, the cost of tap water itself will be the new crisis. Inflation has pushed municipal operating costs through the roof. Chlorine prices are up 78%. Piping materials like PVC and copper have more than doubled. And the American Water Works Association now estimates we need $2.6 trillion in upgrades to prevent total collapse. But guess what? That money isn't coming from Congress. It's coming from you. Through rate hikes, emergency fees, infrastructure surcharges, all slapped onto your monthly water bill. Right now, the average family of 4 pays about $1,200 annually for water. In 2026, that number could double or triple depending on your zip code. Cities like Phoenix, Austin, and Las Vegas are already implementing tiered pricing that charges more based on time of day, usage, and even income level. That's right, surge pricing for water. And with climate change tightening its grip, droughts are turning reservoirs into dust bowls. Lake Mead hit historic lows in 2025. The Colorado River Compact is falling apart, and towns across the Southwest are now hauling water in by truck at $4,000 per load. Your $100 might get you 1 week of tap water access if your neighborhood hasn't been rationed yet. And that's not counting bottled water, which now sells in some disaster-prone areas for $12 a gallon. You want to wash your clothes? Take a shower? Cook dinner? You better ration like it's wartime, because this is wartime economics. Hyperinflation destroys utility pricing logic. There's no anchor. There's no stability. There's only chaos, desperation, and exploitation. The dollar isn't dying because people don't believe in America, it's dying because America stopped believing in infrastructure. And now, $100 won't even buy you the basic human right of clean water. That's not a collapse, that's a betrayal. Number 4. In 2026, your $100 might buy 1 month of internet access, if you're lucky. You think the internet is a right? In a hyperinflated America, it's a luxury and one that's getting priced out of the hands of millions by the minute. Look, we built an entire economy, society, and education system on the assumption that internet access was permanent, cheap, and scalable. But we forgot one thing. The infrastructure that supports it all is crumbling under economic stress. And when the dollar starts melting, the ISP giants don't eat the losses you do. In 2023, the average household paid around $65 a month for internet. In 2025, it hit $95 in many cities after companies tacked on maintenance fees, infrastructure surcharges, and network stability adjustments, all fancy terms for "we're squeezing you dry because we can." But in 2026, we're entering new territory. Fiber optic cable has become a rare commodity due to global silicon shortages. Electricity costs have tripled. Data centers are hemorrhaging money to stay cool during extreme heat waves. And now, with hyperinflation gutting the dollar, the big telecoms are shifting to prepaid tiered access models, essentially turning internet access into a subscription lottery. Your $100 might buy you 30 days of basic connectivity, but don't expect video calls, streaming, or even file downloads, just a throttled-down, surveillance-heavy, ad-soaked drip feed that feels more like 2003 than 2026. And what happens when Americans can't afford to be online anymore? Jobs vanish. Education collapses. Remote work dies. Small businesses fold. Half the freelance economy disappears overnight. Already in 2025, libraries across 12 states reported a 41% increase in walk-ins by people just trying to check email or apply for jobs, and those are the lucky ones. Rural areas? Don't even get me started. Starlink prices just surged to $159 per month, and Elon's satellites don't care if your paycheck hasn't kept up with inflation. In 2026, digital poverty becomes a real and measurable crisis, not just a buzzword. And let's be honest, in a country where half the population gets its news from TikTok and Instagram, what happens when they're locked out of information? You create a blackout society where the only people with access to truth are the ones who can afford it. That's not freedom, that's a dystopia wrapped in a router. And your $100? It buys you 30 days in the crumbling digital kingdom, then dumps you back into the dark. Number 3, that $100 bill might get you 1 box of prescription medication, and it still might not work. Now we're heading into the part of the collapse no one wants to talk about because it's not theoretical. It's not about inconvenience, it's about life and death. In a hyperinflationary America, your $100 bill isn't a safety net, it's a gamble. And if you or a loved one rely on prescription meds to survive, that gamble just became Russian roulette. Even before hyperinflation fully kicked in, the cracks were there. Generic drugs. The last hope for affordability saw prices spike 25% in 2025 alone, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. Insulin? Already pushing $300 per vial, even after the price caps and press conferences. ADHD meds like Adderall? In national shortage? Blood pressure pills? Back-ordered for weeks. And those were the good days. Now imagine what happens when the pharmaceutical supply chain, already globalized, fragile, and deeply dependent on imported Chinese precursors, collides with a worthless dollar. US companies can't buy the raw materials. Manufacturers cut batches. Pharmacies start rationing. And drug prices? They explode. Experts at the University of Chicago warn that by mid-2026, common maintenance medications, think heart disease, diabetes, anxiety, could cost $600 to $1,200 per refill. And here's the twist. That doesn't even guarantee quality. In desperation, the market will be flooded with black market imports, counterfeit pills, and watered-down generics, meaning even if you spend the $100, there's a real chance what you're getting won't work. In countries that collapsed under hyperinflation, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Argentina, this is exactly what happened. Pharmacies closed, hospitals went dark, and cash became irrelevant. Bartering returned. Nurses were paid in diapers and fuel, and people with chronic illness were left to die. In America, we're already flirting with that scenario. Insurance coverage is being stripped down. Medicare copays are ballooning, and ER visits are already up 37% due to patients skipping meds they can no longer afford. When hyperinflation really takes hold, the healthcare system won't break evenly, it'll snap, fast and loud. So, yeah, your $100 bill might buy you a single box of pills. Maybe, if you get there early, if the pharmacy hasn't run out, if your doctor still has power and bandwidth to write the script. But it won't buy you peace of mind. It won't buy you health. It'll buy you a moment of hope and maybe one more day before the entire medical system tips over the edge and disappears. Number 2. In 2026, your $100 won't buy goods. It will buy temporary compliance. This is where hyperinflation stops being an economic problem and becomes a behavioral one. Because when money stops working as money, it doesn't disappear, it mutates. In 2026, your $100 bill won't reliably buy food, fuel, medicine, or utilities anymore. What it will buy is time, access, silence, compliance. This is the stage every collapsing empire hits right before the system hardens. Look at history. In late-stage Weimar Germany, shopkeepers didn't price goods, they negotiated relationships. In Venezuela, police officers waved drivers through checkpoints for the equivalent of a few US dollars. In Zimbabwe, hospital beds went to patients who could contribute. That's not corruption, that's hyperinflation economics. When a currency loses its function as a store of value, it becomes a bribe token. And Americans aren't ready for how fast that shift happens. In 2026, $100 might get you to the front of the line at a government office. It might convince a landlord not to evict you this month. It might secure a favor, a workaround, an exception. Not legally, informally, quietly, off the books. Because when institutions are underfunded, understaffed, and overwhelmed, enforcement becomes selective. And selective enforcement always favors those who can still produce value on demand. The middle class gets crushed here. The wealthy don't care they've moved into assets. The poor are already excluded. But the middle? They still believe the rules apply evenly. They still think receipts matter. Hyperinflation shatters that illusion. By this stage, governments don't collapse, they reprioritize. Resources flow to enforcement, not relief. Digital ID systems expand. Cash withdrawals are capped. Anti-hoarding laws appear. Not because the state wants control, but because control is the only thing left when trust is gone. And your $100 bill? It's no longer a unit of exchange. It's a negotiation chip. A way to grease gears that no longer turn freely. That's the warning sign most people miss. When money no longer buys goods, but buys exceptions, you're no longer living in a functioning economy. You're living in a system that's already moved past collapse and is now reorganizing itself around power instead of price. Number 1. In the final stage, your $100 will buy nothing. Because money is no longer the point. This is the end state. Not riots, not fireballs, not some Hollywood apocalypse. The real final stage of hyperinflation is quieter and far more terrifying. It's the moment when money stops being relevant at all. In 2026, the $100 bill won't be weak, it'll be irrelevant. Because the economy won't be organized around currency anymore. It'll be organized around access. Energy access, food access, medical access, housing access. And those are controlled, not priced. Every historical empire collapses the same way. Rome debased its currency until soldiers demanded land instead of pay. The Soviet Union paid workers in goods instead of rubles. Argentina cycles through this every generation. Once inflation accelerates beyond control, the market doesn't adjust, it abandons the currency. Barter returns. Employer-provided rations return. Company towns return. Loyalty programs turn into survival programs. Your job doesn't pay you, it feeds you. Your landlord doesn't accept rent, they accept usefulness. And governments? They don't print their way out. They redefine the system. Digital currencies, ration credits, carbon allowances, priority tiers, all justified as temporary stabilization. But nothing is more permanent than a temporary policy during collapse. This is why hyperinflation is the final stage. Not because it destroys money, but because it destroys the idea that money represents fairness, effort, or time. In this world, a $100 bill is just paper. A relic from a system that promised equivalence work equals reward, saving equals security, planning equals stability. That promise is gone, and once it's gone, it never comes back the same way. Empires don't fall when people are poor. They fall when people realize the rules no longer apply and stop playing. In 2026, the question won't be, what will $100 buy? The question will be, who still controls what you need to survive? Because that's where power lives after money dies. And by the time most people understand that shift, it's already too late to opt out. That's not fear-mongering. That's history repeating itself with better technology, faster collapse, and far fewer exits. This isn't a prediction, it's a countdown. Every empire reaches a moment where money stops working, and when that happens, everything else follows. Food, power, order, trust. By the time most people realize what hyperinflation really means, their savings are already gone, and the rules have already changed. So don't ask what $100 will buy in 2026. Ask who will still accept it. Because when they stop, the collapse is already complete.